Hey, Stereo Asmith here. Yeah, I'm wearing my red shirt today. I got a new headphone amp here to check out. So, let us get right to it. Okay. Singxer. Singers. I don't know how to pronounce it. Sorry, guys. Singxer. I don't know. But this is basically, I can get to it, the SA-1, and I'll put it up here so you can see. Maybe I can move the light away to make it all pretty. SA-1 Class A fully balanced headphone amplifier. So hopefully I'm gonna take a listen to this and try to get some thoughts on it. But basically, just so you can kind of get a look at it, is that you have on this side for the switches, and I'll move this over here. I don't know if you can focus, but basically you have HPA, pre, and off. So I'm thinking headphone amp used as a preamp or off. Then RCA, this is your input, either RCA or XLR here. And then this is your output, your high Z, meaning high resistance, like Sennheiser HD 600 headphones or otherwise. And I'm sorry for the focus. I need to get a better camera. So maybe if you guys like and subscribe, I can get a new camera. This is the 4x4 balanced output. This is the, it says 6.35 SE. I guess it is technically like 6.35 millimeters. We just call it quarter inch. And then the balanced XLR connection, 4-pin XLR connection with the volume control. Now there are some extra switches on the bottom, along with 3 screws here, which I guess have to do with the mounting, so I'm not going to mess with those. But this says low gain, high gain, so it's in, this side is in low gain, this side's in, then there's another switch, same thing, low gain, high gain, then low gain, high gain. So I don't know where this is. I'd have to read the manual to find out. This is a loaner unit, so I don't know, but it probably has to do with the different sections, like whether you want it on the front end or maybe the back end. I'm trying to get a better shot of that, maybe that you could see. Maybe even less light. We'll try that. Yes, low gain, high gain, low gain, high gain. And then so that's the switches. It's all in low gain right now. But yeah, it's just an easy switch to switch it over to high gain. So I'm guessing that this is like one channel and this is like the other channel. So this is maybe maybe the positive leg, the negative leg, the positive leg, the negative, something like that, some sort of configuration. So you probably have to switch them all over to get into high gain, or all over to left to low gain. So let's look at the back right quick. The input is on the sort of right hand side of the back of it. So this is the left hand. If you're looking at the back, it's on the left hand side. If you're looking from the front, it will be on the right hand side. And you have just your balanced input and your unbalanced input. So that's where you would switch from the front of the unit, right? And then your output here, you have XLR out to use as a pre-out, either both RCA and quarter, and then you have just your power switch and your fuse and your power input. So designed and assembled in China. Maybe I will open it up a little bit to see kind of like what's sort of inside. It looks like it's got some star type screws. I don't know if I have a screwdriver right away that would fit. Oh, I do. Yes, I do. But yeah, I'll see if I can take the. We'll get into the lid and get into the insides in a little bit, and so I'm gonna take the power cord out and shut this box, and then I'm gonna have a listen, and then give you some thoughts right after this. So stay tuned. So basically, I don't have to open it up. I found a picture on the internet, so we're just gonna look at that. It's probably better than my camera that can't really focus that well, so we'll just go with that. So it looks like the first thing I notice is that when the power comes in, if you look at the top left, that's the power input and the switch, and then it goes right into some Meanwhile, it looks like switcher power supplies. Now, I know switcher power supplies are like sort of bad word in the audiophile or hi-fi world, but these are the same looking ones that that you also find in the Gilmore Light MK2 like linear power supplies. So even though they're switchers, they're supposed to be very linear, very clean. They have a lot of like filtering going on to give them very clean power. So that's very good. That's probably what keeps the small size and the lightweight of it. And also switchers are very efficient. So when you're not using them, it doesn't have to draw a lot of current like a full thing. Now these are linear, so it will still give you like a lot of voltage, and you know, because it does say that it's full Class A, right? So and going from there, it looks like it's got some nice like filter caps going on both sides. It looks like it's doing some you know, voltage dividing. And then on the input, it looks like there's some you know, some op amps over towards the bottom sort of middle area, and that's where you have your switching going on and where you have your those op amps, so, and those SOIC looking things. But above those switches, like between the Meanwhile and the switches, you see those little black things in the middle. Those are you know, voltage regulators. So I know that those are very good, high efficient voltage regulators. I've also seen those in other units, such as like some of the Cavelli, not Mastrop, but some of the monolith stuff, basically, from Monoprice. So, and if you look to the right, you see those big, and them in the middle is hard to miss, those big fans. It's probably like the second biggest thing that anyone noticed. And that's probably where all the transistors are. So they're probably well hidden. We're probably not going to know what transistors they are, what they're using, how they're getting their Class A. Some of the input section to the right, though, doesn't look like op amps. It looks very discrete because they've got two channels. So you're running you know, a positive and a negative leg because it's balanced, it's true balanced. And then you have, to the right, you have this 4-ganger Alps volume control. So that is a full-on Alps volume control. So that is very nice addition. It does look like it has some caps. So it does look like it has a cap-coupled output, what's also called a AC coupled output, because it looks like there is some electrolytics probably in parallel with some film caps. So yeah, that is one of the things that I wish I would have liked to see is more of a, you know, DC. And that's basically where the audio output coming from amplifiers, there's a DC bias, and there's a couple ways to remove that DC bias before we actually get to the final by the final output. And you know, that is by AC coupling or DC coupling. So AC coupling is this, where you're using a capacitor, and then DC coupling is where you're actually using like an active circuit to track and like remove that DC bias. I really like, you know, DC coupling if you can, but I understand it's not always, you know, in the cars, because it adds some, you know, more circuits, more complications, that sort of thing. The other thing is, you see a couple of relays. It looks like there is an input relay. There's two input relays. Those are these white boxes on the right side. You see two little white rectangular boxes with some feet. And then there's also one like on the direct output of the headphone amplifier. So that is the that's what's going on there, is the relays, which is good, which means that, you know, usually they're either a delay, or if there is a DC bias on the output, it's going to protect you know, your headphones or whatever. So yeah, so I don't, there are two op amps, like if you look on the right side, just above the two relays on the top right, there are a couple of op amps. I don't know what those are, but you know, sometimes those are like the input drivers or whatever, because that's on the input side, like where the input would be on that side. So without like tracing the whole circuit or looking at things, I mean, it still looks very cleanly designed. It still looks like it's very, very well designed, and you can see those 4 screws in the middle, like in the actual input section. That probably is to, you know, if we're looking at this like upside down. Here, I'll switch to this right quick. So this is kind of how we're looking at things. This we're, you know, because this is how we're kind of looking at it, is by this right here. So if we go back to this, you can kind of see this is where we're at, because actually no, this would be, we'd be looking at it like this on top, basically. This is the input. I can't really get that same orientation backwards, because it doesn't really work that way, but you can kind of see like where these 4 are, would kind of, they correspond. Let's see if we go this way. They're like right in the middle. So if I'm looking at it this way, let's go back to this. See how the is right in line with the kind of like the 1/4-inch connection, and you see the unbalanced connection at the bottom. You know, so I'll go back to this. So that's here, and then here's the switches. And if I look, flip it over, and there's my like 3 screws over here. So it is kind of like underneath. Those are the screws that are probably holding on that plate, that vent plate, or the temperature plate. So just wanted to show you a little bit of that, and show you a little bit of the inside, so we can kind of get an idea of what's going on, a little bit of an insight to the design. So, and if you kind of know what you're looking at, and other people that know even more about circuitry may be able to look at this and be able to tell you a little bit more about like the internals, like kind of how it's designed, all that kind of stuff. Some of you may not care, but you know, I look at things as I want to understand if something sounds a certain way. I want to understand the design of how that gets that certain sound. So, so yeah, so there you go. Hopefully we'll understand, and once again, now's the time I'm going to plug it up and listen to it. So we'll talk to you later. Stereo Azimuth here again. So I'm done with the Singxer SA-1 headphone amplifier, full Class A, full balanced headphone amplifier. And now is the time where I tell you, what it is all about. First off, I just want to say before I get into the sound quality of it all, this right here, I mean, obviously you have to have this on for a preamp or headphone amplifier. This right here is just your source, whether you're XLR or RCA. In the back, the high Z low switch. I mean, even with high Z or low Z headphones, IEMs didn't really make that much of a difference. I understand that if you have it on like high Z, it's supposed to take care of the current limiting because it can draw too much power. So and then of course like your headphone output. I did find out too, I want to say too before I get too far into it, and I'm gonna have to change the focus of this. So this right here, the low gain, high gain kind of thing, right? Like, so one of these is two of these are one channel and two of these are the other channel. So basically like one is the, like the positive rail of the balanced output, one is the negative rail of the balanced output. So to be in high, like this would be low gain for both channels. This would be high gain for both channels, so you need both of them up. You could do a medium gain by doing like this. I probably wouldn't suggest doing that. I didn't try that, but I mean, use it at your own risk that way. So I would just try it in low or high. Most of the time you're probably going to need high because the headphones that I had didn't really like low gain that much. I mean, it needs, like, even though that this thing is supposed to have a lot of power, I didn't really feel like it had a lot of power and authority and weight. It is extremely, and I mean extremely sort of polite sounding. It like, and I'll show you, just you can get familiar with the inputs and outputs again. It just sounded so polite. I mean, this is like the amplifier it's like the girl next door kind of sound. It's almost kind of soft. It is very wide. I wouldn't really call it I wouldn't call it really detailed or a lot of plankton per se. It had a nice, pleasant sound to it. I mean, there was nothing really offensive about it, but there's also nothing really extremely exciting about it either. Not that it was like boring and I wanted to like turn it off. It sounded like pretty good enough, but it just sounded real like laid back, almost distanced, almost. So I don't. I mean, I don't really know. And it needed a lot of power. Like I felt like I was having to turn the volume up, like way, up to get like to good sound volume, which may be good if you're sitting at a desktop and using this as a desktop amplifier. Because sometimes when I'm working, I don't like it really loud. So there was not a lot of like imbalance in the bottom end. I did find with IEMs, if I had it on high gain and I turned it all the way up, there was a little bit of noise, but only at the very top end. Like when I got all the way up to this mark here, did I find like some noise. But once I went down to low gain, you could turn it, I mean, almost all the way up. And you almost don't need to. So as long as you have good program material, I mean, there's no reason to turn it all the way up. Other than that, it was pretty quiet. From what I understand, the high Z, low Z switch, like I said, didn't really do much. From what I read, somebody said on another forum that it limits the current. I don't know. I mean, your mileage may vary. Your difference may vary. I didn't find very much of a difference on it. I just find it, very sort of adequate. I think the power of this and the good part of this and the good sort of takeaway of this amplifier is that it has a lot of flexibility for inputs and outputs. You can go balanced in, you can go unbalanced in, you can go balanced out, you can go unbalanced out. So even with an unbalanced source, you can go balanced out. Even with a balanced source, you can go unbalanced out. And there's no real penalty because you're just using like 2 of the amplifiers instead of 4. So because I guess there's 4 actual like amplifiers on the inside. This is what I'm guessing at by looking at our design earlier. So in the IEMs, I did, like, I was using the 4.4 like balanced output. So I never really tried the, I did try the single-ended output on some of my other headphones, and it was fine. It's just like, you know, half as much power, basically. Sounded the same. There was no real difference. I think that, you know, looking at the other amplifiers that are kind of like this, I mean, this was priced at $599. I think that there are other amplifiers that I like better, and you may like better depending on what you like. Some of the, like the Cavelli Liquid Carbon, for example, might be a good. That to me is a more sort of robust, like laid back sound that gives you a lot of depth and detail. You know, if the Gilmore Light MK2 I think is also a really good choice, but the problem with that amplifier is it's also like $499 or $599, but for it to really shine, you need the upgraded power supply, and that one is unbalanced only. I really don't necessarily think that we need balanced in headphones myself. I'm completely fine in using you know, unbalanced equipment and unbalanced headphones. I don't have a problem with it. It's just that, you know, if you use a DAC that is true balanced, then you want to, you know, maintain that balanced connection and take full advantage of it. So, I mean, if you had a couple different sources and you're using this, and if this is your first, like, you know, high-end amplifier, I think that it's something great. I mean, I wouldn't consider it like a huge upgrade from something like a Schiit Magni or a Valley 2, simply because the sound quality is not going to be, you know, completely there. It's not like a full jump, but I think that the flexibility that you get out of it, you know, might weigh into your you know, what you want out of it, depending on, you know, your system and your setup. A lot of people are going to ask, like, well, what's the difference between this and the Jot 2? Because the Jot 2, the Jotunheim 2, is also has balanced in, unbalanced, you know, balanced in, unbalanced in, balanced out, unbalanced out. The Jot 2, I think, is way more aggressive, way more narrow in its, you know, soundstage and staging. I think it has some warmer capabilities in balanced mode. Unbalanced out is a little more aggressive. And comparatively to this, this one is going to sound much more laid back than the Jotunheim. The Jotunheim can sound kind of congested at times on really complicated material. Complicated material on this was fine. It's just that you might not get like all the sort of like details and things like that out of it. You know, to me it was kind of like a balanced Asgard 2, if I can say that. Maybe not quite as warm, just a little bit more neutral sounding balanced Asgard 2. So if that's what you're after, because Asgard 2 is also like Class A, but it's just not fully balanced. But there are some similarities in the sound, I think, between those two. You know, the Gilmore Light is also like Class A, but that, you know, configuration is a little bit different. Class A, the Super Symmetry, and I find that those have a little bit more like sort of aggressive sound, a little bit to it, a little more oomph, a little more drive in the low end. The low end and the high end on both of these were just a little bit soft. So there you go. That's my review of the Singxer. Overall, I mean, I'm going to grade all of my stuff kind of like the same way a lot of people do. I mean, I'm going to give it like a B. It's like a passing score, and probably the only reason why I get, high score. Some people may rate it lower than others, but I find that it does add some value to it being so flexible in the inputs and outputs. So there is something to offer with this amp. But it's nothing that, it's not going to be, something that's going to be like truly awesome. But it does get the job done, and it does sound, quite pleasant and quite inoffensive, and does the job, and is probably worth sort of the asking price. I don't think it punches above its class. I don't think it punches below its class. I think it's right on the mark, and that's why it gets a B. So anyway, so other products I may rate higher or lower depending on how awesome that I think it is. Like the Valley 2 Plus, for example, I would rate like an A or even like an A plus, even though that it's a lower amp, just simply because I think it punches like way above its weight class as far as like its value. So so take that for what it is. I'm wearing my Star Wars shirt because it's May the 4th. May the 4th be with you. Stereo Azimuth, and you guys have a great day.